With the Oblivion Remaster finally out, it's a good time to take a look at some other games that could do well to receive the remastered treatment. That's coming up right after these messages on this week's Next Gen Console Watch. Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following everything happening with the latest gaming hardware. I'm Daemon Hatfield, and this week I'm joined by Ryan McCaffrey, host of Podcast Unlocked, Max Scoville, host of Podcast Beyond, and Jada Griffin, IGN's community lead. Welcome, everyone. Now, with The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remaster finally released this week, everyone seems to be enjoying either returning to Cyrodiil or exploring it for the first time. That's me exploring it for the first time. Whenever a remaster is done well, we end up thinking about other older games that deserve the same treatment, which leads us to this week's topic. But first, we should explain the difference between a remaster and a remake, because some fans think this version of Oblivion is so improved it feels more like a remake, but it says remaster right on the box. So which do we think it is, Ryan?
Well, one of the original designers, who's no longer at Bethesda, was quoted this week. We had a story on IGN about this as saying it kind of needs a new term, that it kind of remaster doesn't really do it justice. And he referred to it as Oblivion 2.0. Which, okay, yeah, I could get down with that. That works. But yeah, this one, I mean, I think remaster, typically our collective assumption, if that's fair, is that it's basically just a visual pass only. Whereas a remake is from the ground up, and you're getting some creative license to change the gameplay or the level design or what have you. And this Oblivion remaster, it does make some gameplay tweaks in the interest of modernizing things a little bit and smoothing out some rough edges. So it definitely does blur the line. And I'll say technologically, it's one of the most impressive remasters officially that I've seen. I mean, there's a low bar for remastering, and that's kind of a lot of the straight port stuff we've seen Aspyr do in the past. And for me, this is the new high bar. I mean, it really looks excellent on the Series X. It's I've really been impressed at just how good it looks. I've only had a chance to put a couple of hours into it so far, but I really think they over-delivered here. I mean, maybe it's on me that the word remaster kind of sets my expectation a little lower, that it's like, it's just going to kind of go with 4K, pump up the textures a little bit. But no, there's some really impressive work going on here, courtesy of the Unreal Engine 5 layer, new graphics layer running on top of the original, what at the time was the Gamebryo engine. Now it's evolved into what Bethesda calls the Creation Engine. But yeah, it's super impressive. And so that's kind of how I look at remaster versus remake. But I know there can be a spirited debate on what those two things individually mean.
I mean, Ryan, I see a lot of comments where a lot of people complain about all the remasters we get and they want new stuff. And so I think that is to your point about how you kind of have a lower expectations when you hear the word remaster attached to something. And especially with the strides they took here with Oblivion 2.0, that I totally understand where you're coming from. And I'm sure a lot of people kind of feel that way as well when it comes to just remasters in general. They're kind of just expecting that fresh coat of paint, looks a little bit nicer on their new consoles because it came out in the previous generation. But hey, I've got this new shiny one. I want it to look the best it can. And so that's what remasters, I think initially where they were supposed to kind of fill the gap. But I think at this point, it's kind of gotten muddied between remaster and remake. For, like you said, I agree. I think remakes do entail some sort of gameplay changes, and while they did go in and add a bunch of new stuff to Oblivion, such as like new voice line recordings and such, a lot of those, and they also they adjusted the level up system a little bit as well here. I still think this one still falls into the remaster realm for me after about a handful of hours. I'm like level 4 right now running through, and it still feels like all the old systems are almost virtually the same. Like they're better, but they still feel very much like when I was playing it back in 2006. So I understand why they went with the remaster over the remake designation this time around.
Well, in any case, It seems to be a very well done remaster. This is how to do it. I was super impressed with the lighting in just that first dungeon area that we were looking at it in the footage just a little bit ago. Super great lighting and shadow effects. Very, very pretty looking game, and I never played the original. So, Max, I want to start with you with our picks for other games that deserve this treatment, because I think the first one is going to be the first one that, if we were to poll our audience, they would say Bloodborne is the game they want remastered.
I mean, if you kicked it off with any other game, everyone would get mad at you, and that would include me. Bloodborne, I'll take either. I'll take a remake or a remaster at this point, because it's a phenomenal game from the ground up. What's really frustrating is that there have been, fan attempts to sort of tweak things. There was the big thing that people kind of point to with Bloodborne specifically is the frame rate. Like it's locked at 30 frames a second, and it's an extremely fast-paced game, and it makes it hard to go back to. Like, I think a lot of the time we look at games like this and, mechanically things will be a little bit clunky, or, maybe the textures are noticeably lower, lower resolution. But when it comes down to frame rate, especially with a game where it really depends on timing and reflexes and parrying and all that stuff, it makes the experience worse, especially after playing something like, Elden Ring and going back to it. It seems like one of those things that really, even if Sony phoned it in, even if it was the lowest bar for what a remaster, constitutes, it just seems like such an easy win. Just put it on PC, make it run at a higher frame rate. It would make so many people so happy. But at the same time, if we have the opportunity to wait a little bit longer, if we get anything out of this, getting a full overhaul, like imagine something on par with the Bluepoint PS5 version of Demon's Souls, but for Bloodborne, I think that would be the best case scenario. That would be the thing that everyone would love to see. Demon's Souls did a nice job sidestepping the whole remaster remake conversation by just calling itself Demon's Souls, because if you walk into GameStop in 2021 and say, hey, can I have a Demon's Souls, they're probably not going to have the PS3 copy lying around anyway, so it's sort of a non-issue. I mean, it would be really nice to get something like that, but yeah, I mean, we've seen Sony go and do remakes, remasters left and right. Another one that is coming out this week is Days Gone, which is kind of hilarious. And there's also that we got Until Dawn, which is getting a movie next week, I think. Yeah. And that got a PS5 version and a PC port. The PC port is a really smart thing, because it kind of it's a good way to double dip, and Sony's seen some really good, ROI on that front, reaching a broader audience with games that have an established fan base. But again, even with the Days Gone remaster, I guess, remake, whatever it was, that one they didn't do a great job on. Like, people were pointing out that playing the original was kind of a smoother experience. And again, these things can, even when they seem like the surest thing in the world, the easiest win, we see them get screwed up left and right. So yeah, I'm glad Oblivion pulled it off so well. It would be really nice to see Bloodborne get the same treatment. I'd be so happy. Yeah,
that's the one that everyone wants. I've actually never played Bloodborne. For the longest time, I didn't think FromSoft games were for me, but then came Elden Ring. Now I would love to try a remastered Bloodborne. I realize they're different beasts, Bloodborne and Elden Ring, but I'm ready to dive into that, should that ever come. Ryan, you wanted to see Fallout 3, and I'd be curious to hear why you'd rather have that over New Vegas.
Well, we went into this New Vegas would be fine. Believe me, I would happily take either one. But just trying to think about it practically in terms of, like, how would Microsoft think about this from a business perspective? We talked about this on Unlock this week, and if Fallout 3 Remastered had not already been greenlit, I would be willing to bet lunch that it was after this week, because the Oblivion Remaster on its first day immediately rocketed up to become the number 3 most played game on Steam with concurrent players. It was well over 150,000 players. It's going to be even bigger this weekend when pretty much everybody's off of work and just able to sit down and play the game. And that's, of course, that big Steam figure doesn't even take into account PS5 players, PC Game Pass players, and Xbox players and Xbox Game Pass players. So the number is actually was way higher than 150 plus thousand concurrents. So the success of this thing is enormous. And also, like, if you're Bethesda and Microsoft and you've just partnered with the developer Virtuous to do this Oblivion Remaster, where they went over with Unreal Engine over the top of it and made those gameplay tweaks to go along with it. I mean, you've laid all the groundwork to do the same thing with Fallout 3 or New Vegas. The reason I think Fallout 3 would be the way to go is that's a mainline game in the series. It probably has slightly higher sales potential if it were to come back in remastered form. So if Virtuous isn't already working on it, since they have all the knowledge in place and the experience after having done Oblivion, I've got to think that Microsoft has picked up the phone already this week and said, let's do this, because the business reality, unfortunately for us, is that Fallout 5 is at least 10 years away, because Todd Howard has said, he told me in an interview a couple years ago that I had asked him point blank, like, are you going to be the one that does Fallout 5, and is Fallout 5 your game after Elder Scrolls 6? And he said, yes, I want to, that's what's next, and I want to be doing that game. So he obviously has earned that respect, and Microsoft's not going to pull the rug out from under him and go, well, sorry, Todd, we have a huge show on Amazon right now. We're just going to give this to Obsidian, who's available right now, and they're going to do it. No, they're not going to do that to Todd Howard. So they need something Fallout related, and the massive success of this Oblivion remaster this week just will be a giant green flag made of money to Microsoft that says, yep, we should 100% be doing this for Fallout 3 and or New Vegas as well. So I've just got to think that that's, if it wasn't already in the works, it is now.
So I want to piggyback off of that. There's a couple little wrinkles in there that I think could really, honestly, Fallout 3, we know it's in the works for starters. In the case of New Vegas, we've seen leaked set photos from season 2 of the Prime series. And they're apparently going to New Vegas in that. When the first season of the Fallout show premiered, I think it was like 7,500% spike in people's playing Fallout 4.
Something like that, yeah.
And 76, I think, might have been, but maybe also Fallout 4. I think all of them.
It was, it kind of just spiked across the board. And that was honestly kind of, I don't know if Bethesda expected that to happen, but that was sort of the first instance of this happening, of them being like, oh, wow, we have this IP that people adore and people will go back to play it. I would really love to see, it would be great to see Obsidian do something with Fallout. It'd also be great to see inXile do something with Fallout, because effectively all of the studios that worked on the original Fallout series, which, eventually kind of imploded and scattered, are now under the Microsoft banner. And I would say, is Fallout the most valuable IP that Microsoft currently has? It's
either that or the Elder Scrolls.
Yeah,
other than Call of Duty,
right. Yeah. We always discount Call of Duty because that's always in the first place. We just don't, that's the prom king quarterback or whatever. But the other one, Fallout is also a very distinct IP. It's it's got its Mad Max DNA. But in terms of looking at what else there is like it, Elder Scrolls borrows heavily from a bunch of established fantasy. Fallout is unique. Fallout has a very specific appeal, and it would be so cool to see that kind of expanded upon and really. It'd be nice if they were almost taking a similar approach to Call of Duty, in that they have different studios with different specialties that could be working on remakes, remasters, or, side story spin-off type stuff. Obviously Todd Howard wants to work on Fallout 5, but you've got all these wonderful games that could really just use a tune-up and a fresh coat of paint kind of sitting there. And a lot of other, the Outer Worlds is arguably kind of a Fallout-like, and you've got... Wasteland, which is, again, kind of a Fallout-like. But what if these were remakes of New Vegas or of, Fallout 1 and 2? I'm just throwing that one out there.
Let me give you a little bit of quick hope, Max. We were talking about this on Unlocked this week. So you mentioned Obsidian. All your points are super valid. Josh Sawyer was the lead designer, the mastermind behind Fallout New Vegas. He's a highly regarded designer. His body of work is incredibly impressive over the course of his career. The last thing he worked on, the last thing he shipped was Pentiment, which was a little game, arguably pretty obscure. But it got a 10 out of 10 from IGN and a lot of other outlets. And that was November of 2022. And to the best of our knowledge, we're doing an IGN first month of exclusive coverage on The Outer Worlds 2 right now. They just shipped Avowed. Josh isn't working on The Outer Worlds 2, and he didn't work on Avowed. So Josh is cooking on something, and there's every reason to believe that it could be a new Fallout, New Vegas-like, not Fallout 5, but a game of that, kind of Outer Worlds 2, Avowed scope caliber. they've got Unreal Engine in-house. That's what powers. They're making 2 first-person RPGs with it, with Avowed and Outer Worlds 2. So there are a lot of signs of optimism to maybe think that there could be a big new Fallout project going on. I don't know anything. I'm not trying to report anything. I'm just trying to put pieces together. But yeah. I think given Josh his history and the fact that Pentiment was over 2 years ago, hopefully something's cooking.
I kind of get the feeling that Pentiment was like part of a deal where it's like, we want you to do blank. Okay, fine, I'll do blank if you let me make this weird game I've been kicking around for a decade.
Okay,
well, I hope you're right.
Jade, I want to bring you in here. Now, the day that we're recording this, we learned that Ghosts of Yote is going to be out October 2nd later this year. That's my most anticipated game coming this year. Mm-hmm. That is coming from Sucker Punch, and once upon a time, Sucker Punch made a PlayStation 3 game called Infamous, and that was one of your picks.
Yeah, I mean, Infamous is one of those games and series that, besides Second Son that we got on the PS4, has just kind of been dormant and locked. The original is locked to the PS3, and that's cell structure that we all curse it for. Infamous is a great open world game with superpowers, and I mean, open world has become this big, expanding market among fans where people are looking. I mean, we see other games that are branching into open world now. Mario Kart is open world this time around for sake. And so I would really love to go back and experience these original, both Infamous 1 and 2, with the brand new coat of paint and, better performance. Like, they ran fine from my memory back on the PS3. I haven't booted them up in probably a decade plus, but I think these would be just ripe for the picking, especially with how I would say a little bit smaller Sony's release calendar has looked so far outside of Yote and Death Stranding this year. Something like this would be great. Like, obviously, I don't think Sucker Punch would probably take this one themselves for a remaster. I could see somebody like Bluepoint or any of their other smaller studios that Sony's acquired over the last half a decade kind of helming this and doing like Virtuous did for Oblivion. Maybe not to that level, but I would like it to be at that level. But I think this one's prime picks for me.
I can't even remember. Are there 2 Infamous games on PS3, or is Second Son the second game?
There are 3 total plus the First Light DLC. So you have Infamous 1 and 2 on PS3, Second Son on PS4, and then there was the First Light, which was like a smaller DLC type game that they put on PS4 as well. Okay,
well, speaking of not remembering which game comes first, Max, you're going to pick Deus Ex Human Revolution, and I couldn't remember if that was before Mankind Divided, but it is, right? That's the first one of the modern ones?
That's right, yeah, and which was, in its sense, a reboot, which is a totally separate thing from remakes and remasters. That one came out in 2011, and in my mind, there's so many games from this era that shortly thereafter then got little bumps for the PS4, Xbox One generation, frequently which were framed as remastered. This one didn't. This one, I don't believe so anyway, and it's a great game. Like, it's a phenomenal sort of cyberpunk entry. It exists in a weird space right now where it was made by Eidos Montreal, who were sort of let go by, or, Square Enix sold them off or whatever. They got scooped up by Embracer Group. I don't know what's going on with the Deus Ex IP, with the who owns what, but I did see rumors that there was a Deus Ex game in development a few years ago that Embracer pulled the plug on. Again, I don't know if that was a whole new project. We're at this point with game development where it takes what, 5 to 7 years to make something that's an unproven thing, and that's frequently a moving target. And like, as much as I love seeing new things happen, you really can't blame companies for maybe wanting to just go with, a bird in the hand, so to speak, and take a game that people know is good and just polish it up and give it to a new audience. This would be phenomenal for that, and Mankind Divided as well. And yeah, I always get the feeling that, like, this came to consoles and PC, and I remember at the time it looked phenomenal on consoles. And I always get the feeling with games like that, they're kind of, there's a lot of room to scale. Like, there's it's a gorgeous looking game, just even looking at this stuff now, and some of this is pre-rendered, but like I don't think it would need a ton of work to look really good. Like, it feels like the kind of game that could really really capitalize on some of the lighting stuff that Unreal 5 is doing. Also, this was a watershed cyberpunk game prior to Cyberpunk 2077 getting a whole lot of people's attention, and that game definitely owes some influence to the both this one and the original Deus Ex. But yeah, I think it's a prime candidate for a nice rebuild.
Yeah, I played this at the time of release and liked it, but haven't played it since, so that would be fun to revisit. Ryan, in the Halo universe, Halo 3, you think it's been remastered before, but it's been a long time, like 15 years, right?
But not really. Like, they just kind of barely touched it up for Master Chief Collection. Halo 1 got a proper anniversary edition that was a real remaster that had a new engine running on top of the old one. You could switch back and forth between them with the touch of a button, which I always love when remasters do that. And then, of course, later came Master Chief Collection, which was anchored by Halo 2 Anniversary, which did the same thing. New engine running on top of the old one. You could switch back and forth on the fly. All new rendered cutscenes from Blur. And guess what? Halo 3 had never got that level of treatment, that, if you will, anniversary treatment. They could absolutely make Halo 3 Anniversary as a deluxe remaster, because 2027, which is not that far away, is the 20th anniversary of Halo 3. So you talk about making fans happy, because let's if you really want to look at this from sort of a business perspective and also fan service perspective, Halo Studios, the artist formerly known as 343 Industries, they're starting over. Like they're hiring a bunch of people. They've had a big turnover in leadership. They've left their engine behind and Slipspace, and they have moved to Unreal. So whatever they're gonna build, whether that's Halo 7 or continuing the story of Halo Infinite, or whether they're gonna start over and like reboot or go with a Halo 1 Unreal Engine 5 remake, but they need an interim project, because otherwise Infinite's already over 3 years old. That was December of 2021, and we're already in 2025. So you've got the 20th anniversary of Halo 3, which is the last of the, well, not technically mainline. I guess Reach is still a mainline game. So it's not the last Bungie game, mainline Bungie Halo game, but Halo 3 super beloved, and the 20th anniversary is coming up. You need a stopgap project to fill the gap while Halo Studios cooks on whatever new Unreal Engine thing they're doing. So it's everybody wins if Microsoft does a Halo 3 remaster and treats it with the same level of care and reverence that they have done with the Oblivion remaster.
Mm-hmm. A lot of those numbers made me feel very old. Jada, do I understand correctly? You've been replaying some of the Batman Arkham games on is it the Podcast Beyond community?
Yeah, we've been doing Beyond Game Club this year, and last month's game was Batman Arkham Asylum. So we went back through it and saw where the the edges of where the cracks in the armor of the bat suit were. And surprisingly, it still holds up pretty well. The art style and art design kind of does a lot of the heavy lifting for it. And gameplay wise, it's still fine. They obviously embellished the free flow system and got better with it as the trilogy improved or came as they released more of them in the trilogy. But this is definitely one that could use another coat of paint and some for the current generation of consoles. And funny enough, this the Return to Arkham collection, which is what I was playing it through, was actually also developed by Virtuous back in 2016. So I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted to take another crack at it, since it would be probably an even lighter lift for them, since they've just did it for the PS4 and Xbox One generation to do that. So this could be a really cool one. And I think the brand for Batman games kind of needs it right now, after both Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad kind of didn't hit the mark for the massive fan base that are out there for Batman games. There are definitely some wins for each of those games, like especially around like art design and such, but the gameplay just wasn't there for a lot of people. So
Jada,
I think,
do you mean to tell me that Batman fans want to play a Batman game where Batman isn't dead?
hey, Batman isn't always dead. He's alive. He's just he's hiding out in the Batcave with Alfred. You just don't get to see him.
And it's the same it's the same situation too as some of these other ones where the next proper mainline entry in the franchise is years and years away, because we know Rocksteady they've only just started on a new single player Batman game. That was from Jason Schreier's report after kind of in the wake of the WB Games leadership fiasco and what have you. But so you got many years until whatever the next game is going to be. And the Arkham trilogy was done in Unreal Engine. So I'm not a game developer, but maybe that makes the lift a little bit easier if you want to do an Unreal Engine 5 remake of the trilogy, or maybe remaster even. Just go back over it with the new version of the engine. So yeah, it just, again, business-wise, fan service-wise, wash the horrible taste of Suicide Squad out of everybody's collective mouths, and let's get back to the Arkham series.
Yeah. All right, we have time for just a few more to call out. Ryan, you had Burnout 3 down here, and yeah, Burnout, that series burned so bright in the 2000s, and it just stopped, and I don't know why. I loved those games. There's not any other racing and crashing game that's like that. I would absolutely love to get a Burnout back, and yeah, I think 3 would be the one I would prefer too.
And just quickly, there are no licensed cars in this, so there would not be that sort of business legal licensing hurdle to it.
Yeah.
Just go back on the tech side and keep the gameplay the same, and I think those games would play. In fact, I know those games would play, specifically 3 would play just as well now, because they're just so brilliantly designed. I do go back and replay Burnout 3 from time to time.
Yeah.
The toughest thing they would have to replace would be the soundtrack, just because of licensing for music is a nightmare.
Yeah,
in games.
That's true. But we could do a new soundtrack
easily. Just
yeah,
for sure.
And then Jada, there were 2 you wanted to call out: Evil Within and Dragon Age Origins.
Yeah, I mean, Evil Within, like, that obviously got a little bit messy with all the acquisitions and the Tango Gameworks, closing doors and such. But Microsoft still owns Evil Within rights, so why not give us a new an updated look on this very spooky Resident Evil Silent Hill alternative that I just absolutely fell in love with back in the day. One of the games I'd like to go back and revisit every Halloween. So would not be mad about seeing an update for that. And then, real quick on Dragon Age Origins, so many people are complaining. We're complaining about Veilguard last year. It's like, it's not dark and, very, grounded in this like gothic and stuff that they loved about Dragon Age Origins back in the day. Well, that seems like it's all the more reason for them to remaster this one and give it that fresh coat of paint, and show the fans what this game actually was. Cause I think there's a lot of, revisionist history about what types of things were included in that game and what that game wasn't compared to other Dragon Age entries. And I, for one, would love to go back and revisit this classic RPG franchise with fresh eyes and fresh coat of paint.
And EA has seen success doing the Mass Effect
exactly.
remasters, so they've seen what it can do.
Yep, for sure. Now, Max, earlier you mentioned the Days Gone remaster is also out this week. They've actually added a bunch of quality of life improvements and accessibility options. So it's not just a straight remaster. But I thought one of them that was interesting is that there's now an option for letting players slow the actual speed of gameplay. There's, you can play at 100% speed, or you can slow it down to 75, 50, or 25%. The aim is to make it easier for players who struggle in high pressure situations. I just think this is interesting. Slow motion, it basically is a slow motion mode, right?
Pretty much, yeah. They've had this in a few games. I think Spider-Man had it, and Forza Horizon, I want to say. And it's a cool accessibility feature if you struggle with having hordes of flesh-eating monsters running straight at your face, but you still want to,
you still want to play the game. Yeah,
that's fair.
I just like that slow motion.
I love it just for.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just love it for getting better photos when I'm playing my games. Being able to slow it down and get those perfect frames for those shots. Maybe the muzzle flare goes off right when you take that shot. It's great.
Totally. No, it's funny though, because they've done this, but they've also made it a lot harder. There's like a speedrun mode, there's a permadeath mode. It's kind of funny to see them just kind of pushing it on, pushing it in both directions at the same time.
It just reminds me, I had a controller for my NES that had a slow motion switch you could switch on, but it's basically just pressing the start button over and over again really fast, which doesn't really work if the start button takes you to a menu. And now slow-mo is back. Okay, dear viewers, we want to know, besides Bloodborne, which of these games we've been discussing would you most like to see, given the Oblivion Remastered treatment? And we only say besides Bloodborne because we know with 100% certainty that would win if that were included. We would like to get some different data out there. Make sure to vote at IGN.com the day this episode goes live. We'll share the results with you next week, just like we did with last episode's poll, which was where do you draw the line at the cost of new games? Talking about the Switch and Mario Kart World and how things seem to be gaming, especially for Nintendo fans, seems to be getting more expensive. The winning result with 41% of the vote said $70. They said that's their limit, so they wouldn't be willing to pay $80 for Nintendo Switch 2 games. We'll see. Only 16% said they were willing to pay $80, but I have a sneaky suspicion that if GTA 6 were to arrive at $80, 84% of those people would suddenly have a very different answer. Okay, when you're not playing the Oblivion or Days Gone remasters, you can get some reading done with Humble Bundle's The Wheel of Time bundle. For $18, our latest bundle includes every volume of the international best-selling The Wheel of Time and connected titles, a groundbreaking epic fantasy series by Robert Jordan and completed by Brandon Sanderson. Or spend $18 and get one of the Hellboy Expanded Universe bundles. You get 30-plus comics and graphic novels exploring the rich, dark, hilarious, and action-packed world of the demonic superhero Hellboy. All right, this episode of Next Gen Console Watch was produced by myself, Damon Hatfield, and Jobert Atienza. Technical direction is by Jobert Atienza, with technical production by Marian Franzen and Amir Rakib. Audio engineering is handled by Amir Rakib. Post-production editing is by Jobert Atienza, and graphic design is by Justin Vachon. Next Gen Console Watch is an IGN production and part of the Geek Media Network. Also, a reminder that IGN Live is happening June 7th and 8th in downtown LA. You can still get early bird tickets for $15 at IGN.com/live. And that's going to do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch. Thank you to Ryan, Jada, and Max. Thank you to everyone working behind the scenes to make this episode possible. My name is Damon. We'll be back next week with the latest gaming hardware news. We'll see you then.